Hey, everybody. Welcome to Grilling at the Green. I'm your host, JT. How is your golf game this week? Well, I hope it's better than mine. Um, we've got a real legend with us today, Ann Liguori. If you're around New York, you listen to her on the Fan, WFAN. She's got a new book, which we're going to talk about, called Lessons and Wisdom from Golf Legends. Or the actual title is Life on the Green and then Lessons and Wisdoms. I've misread my notes there, so forgive me. Anyway, Ann's with us today. I'm very fortunate to have her, and we would like to thank the folks, of course, at the Oregon Crab Commission and Painted Hills Natural Beef for supporting this show. And don't forget, you can get this show on Golf News Networks, iHeart, and we're coming to television here in just a couple of weeks. So we'll talk about that later. But Ann, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Good to be with you.
It's a pleasure. So, all right, what is the story, Liguori? Tell me.
Hey, Liguori, what's the story? Well, that was the name of my weekly show on the Fan for 25 years. I started in 1987. Literally, the first week the Fan went on the air as the first woman to host a call-in sports show. And it was great. I covered every team in New York, talked about every sport, and took phone calls. It was every week, 5-6 hours a show. And, that led to conversations with Ann Liguori on the Golf Channel, my primetime weekly show on the all niche Golf Channel,
Sure.
and many other things. Sports Interview with Ann Liguori that aired from 1989 onwards for 17 years. And that's a show that I'm probably most proud of because I own the archives to the whole library.
Yeah.
And basically I interviewed everybody from Mickey Mantle was my first guest to Ted Williams, Will Chamberlain, Hank Aaron, Billie Jean King, Arnold Palmer. It was just a who's who as far as legends in sports. And I licensed out the shows today, and just actually was at the International Tennis Hall of Fame recently to talk to them about the tennis legends that I interviewed, including Arthur Ashe and Martina Navratilova and Rod Laver, and actually signed my golf book afterwards because all those tennis players are huge golfers. So,
Yeah,
so there
absolutely.
you go.
Now, I know you started at the Fan when you were, what, 4 or 5 years old. So you did that. But New York's a tough market. It is. It's a tough market, and I've never been on the air in New York except for a guest on a few shows, but the call-ins and stuff, some people can be lovely, some people can be harsh. And especially being the first woman sports broadcaster in New York like that with a daily show, how did you survive? Was it easy?
Actually, it was a weekly show. Hey,
Oh,
Liguori,
weekly
what's the
show.
story?
Excuse me.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
still 5 to 6 hours. Yeah, it was tough. I will not disagree with your statement there. And basically, women weren't doing on-air jobs in sports media.
Yeah.
Very few. I mean, I wasn't the very first in sports media to go on the air, but to have a call-in sports show was so rare. And so I felt like I was judged more harshly than the men, that I had to prove myself more than the guys, that I had to be more prepared. And I also thought that, boy, I need to be almost flawless because if I mess this up, not only will I perhaps hurt my own career, but maybe the potential of other women getting into the field of sports media. So I was very conscientious of that and really needed to pull it off and establish that credibility very quickly. And 25 years later, Hey Liguori, what's the story? Was still airing. So,
Yeah.
I feel, proud to have accomplished that and, have a loyal audience of everything I've ever done in media, whether it be radio, TV, podcasts, anything on any channel. More people know me from the Fan and Hey Liguori, what's the story than anything else. So it's a great fan base for sure.
I'm sure when you said you had to be more prepared, I can just envision, because I've been doing this for a long time, and I know the prep work, even going into an hour weekly show. I have a couple of them, but it doesn't matter. I know the prep work going into that. So a 5-hour show just on average, that's a lot of work. And I could see where, if you didn't know the running back stats that week for the guy from whoever it was, the Giants, the Jets, or the Patriots, doesn't matter, they would nail you on that.
Yeah, it was a live show. There was only a 7-second delay. Took calls all night. But you know what? I really prepared. I took notes. I watched every game you needed to watch. I read 5 newspapers. Literally had a notebook. This was before laptops and Google, mind you.
Yeah.
So we couldn't just Google, a subject and look up a question and an answer. So yeah, I took very thorough notes, and I had a file literally for everybody that I was going to interview one day, and I cut out newspaper articles about that person and about the team, and yeah, it was just a very extensive effort for every week, because I really brought my journalistic instincts and talents to the show. I think I was the only journalist, at least Steve Summers used to say, I'm the only real sports journalist on the Fan. And it was a fun show, but I took it very seriously, and we had a great time. But I didn't have a shtick. I
No.
just basically wanted to interview top personalities and talk and answer phone calls and share information, and I think we did a good job of that. And 25 years went pretty quick, but what a
Oh, it
run, right?
does. Yeah, it really does. How we're going to talk some inside radio stuff here, folks. So forgive me. How was the program directors, and then you got the suits down the hall? You've got other people, like when you started the show, being the first woman on the Fan, et cetera, et cetera. We've kind of laid those rules out there, or parameters. But some of the guys that had been broadcasting sports broadcasting for a long time on radio, how did they respond to you when you first came in?
Well, let me first tell you, Susan Waldman was the first voice on the Fan, and she was doing updates at the time. So the Fan
Okay.
went on the air on a Wednesday, July 1st, 1987. On Saturday, July 4th, Hey Liguori, What's the Story debuted. And my very first guest, I knew I had to get a great guest. And my very first guest was the biggest name in sports back then, who was dominating all the headlines, and that was Doc Gooden. The Mets had just won the World Series in 1986. Doc had just gotten out of rehab a couple weeks before WFAN went on the air in 87. And I was determined to get an exclusive interview with him. So I bypassed the PR director, who wouldn't let Doc talk to anybody, and went right up to Doc and asked him myself. I said, hey, there's this new station debuting next week. Would you like to be my first guest? And he said, sure. And so then I had to make sure that nobody else would stick their microphones and grab the interview. And so I asked Doc if he would follow me into the Jets locker room, and we could do the interview there. Remember, Shea Stadium back then was both Mets and Jets.
Right.
And he just followed me into the Jets locker room, and I did this exclusive interview with him. And every radio and TV critic in New York wrote about it, and it was such a coup. And
Oh,
so I just think back then, people had known me, because before I went to WFAN, I was working as a stringer for ABC Radio Sports Network, covering every team in New York. And then I was also freelancing for USA Today sports page. So people saw my byline. So I had established my credibility before I even got the job at FAN. I couldn't have just walked in and gotten this job at FAN. They knew me from my work at ABC Radio Network and USA Today.
sure.
So, it was mostly just educating, the fans and the listeners about my knowledge and my personality and my, I was always like very objective. Being that I wasn't from New York originally, I grew up in Ohio. I wasn't this fanatical, crazy fan of any one team in New York. So I really was the voice of reason. And I think people
Right.
respected that voice and my journalistic background. So I didn't really have, I don't know if there was jealousy or, yeah, there was resistance just hiring women in general in sports media. It was hard to get other jobs, even with this great breakthrough on the Fan. But, I like the sports interview show. MSG Network, who I pitched the show to, said, And we love your work. We hear you on the Fan. We see your byline in USA Today in the sports section. We can provide a time slot for you every week, but we can't pay you. So I don't know if they said that to guys, but basically that was an obstacle because I needed to get paid, obviously, and I needed to pay my camera crew and my production team. But I honestly thought, well, that is a door. Somehow I will make this work. So I went down Madison Avenue, pounded on the pavement, knocked down doors, and advertising executives looked at me like I had three heads. Wait, you're a woman and you want to host a show and you're selling it? And I was quite young. And I said, absolutely. And it worked. I mean, it wasn't easy. There were many times when I thought I'd have to move back to Cleveland, Ohio, and get a job back then because I was living in the most expensive city on the planet.
Right.
But you know what? I just kept really pounding on down doors and I kept my focus and my determination. And I don't know how it happened, but it worked because it was very, very hard. I mean, I was changing traditional mindsets and, plus getting sponsors as talent. And, it was very difficult, but it worked. And that show aired for 17 years, Sports Interview with Ann Liguori, and it was syndicated all over the country. So very happy and very proud of that legacy.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break. I'm going to be back with Ann Liguori here on Grilling at the Green. Stay with us. We've got more to talk about. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. Today, we're very fortunate to have Ann Liguori with us. And this is the part of the show where I ask our guests to share a travel tip, if you will. Besides, we talk to tour players, we talk to amateurs, we talk to sports writers, and they're all a lot of them say, well, don't take the last flight out at night or whatever. But you've logged some serious miles in your career. What would you suggest as a travel tip?
Travel with a carry-on, and that's it.
Yeah.
Do not check a suitcase. And if you can ship your clubs in advance, that's probably a good thing as well. I just, and I've learned this through the years, how to pack really well with a carry-on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just easier. I mean, a lot of times when you go to Ireland or Scotland for golf travel and you're in, one hotel for one night and then you leave the next morning and you're traveling to play different golf courses literally every day. It's just easier with a carry-on and you can get up sometimes, the narrow steps of some of these accommodations, and it's just a lot easier. Plus you have to deal with the golf clubs bringing those. So try to travel light. I know, and when you're going to these venues where there are often 5 seasons in a day, like Ireland and Scotland,
Yeah.
You have to bring the rain gear and the gloves and that. And I always wear, a hat when it's a little chilly. So, but you make good use of the golf bag and the travel bag, and then carry a carry-on. I think probably a lot of people might have told you that, but that would be my tip.
Not too many. Most of them are talking about just stuff things in your golf bag, just fill up all the pockets in your golf bag. But I've traveled enough like you have to say sometimes that golf bag doesn't get there for 2 days, type thing. So anyway, thank you for that. We appreciate it. We appreciate Weston Kia for supporting us on that. So I want to talk about your book, Life on the Green, Lessons and Wisdom from the Legends of Golf. I'm sorry, I was shooting a television thing this morning, and so my brain is like talking in another direction here. So forgive me for that. Yeah, perfect.
There you go.
And I actually, I'll tell you something. I actually got most of it read. I'm an old school kind of guy that if somebody sends me a book that's going to be on the show, I actually try to read the whole book before they are a guest, and not just
same way,
not just the highlights. You talked to some wonderful people here, from Gary Player to Nancy Lopez, Dottie. Dottie's been on the show before, et cetera, et cetera. What's the one biggest thing you gleaned from these people?
Well, they all had different messages, which was amazing because I didn't coach them on coming up with a, different wisdom to share. And it's really 12 legends, 6 men and 6 women, sharing wisdom and life lessons that they bring from their iconic golf careers that they use in their day-to-day life. But, all the themes they all share them, but each one of them talked about a different theme. So whether it was, Padre Carrington talking about embracing your fear and the fact that he not only gets nervous, but he is fearful when he hits that first tee, and embrace that. Whether it's Padre talking about that, or Annika Sorenstam saying, look, there are no shortcuts to success. And she tells stories of her childhood when she learned that. And those were hard lessons that she shared as a child, and also to maintain patience and learn patience. Or Nancy Lopez talking about positivity. And I know it sounds cliche, but it is so hard to stay positive on the golf course and off the golf course. You might have had a bad day at the office. Something's not going great in your personal life. How do you stay positive? And certainly in golf, you're only as good as your last good shot, right? So all of these themes that are in the book, they're universal themes. And so they all believe in these themes, but every legend had his or her own kind of pearls of wisdom that they so generously shared. And I think the common denominator probably would be work ethic. As talented as they all are and were during their golf careers, and some of them are still playing, like Bernard Longer and Padre Carrington, their work ethic is second to none. I mean, for Bernard Longer to have torn his Achilles tendon a couple months, back in the spring, and then coming back, only 2 months later, that takes an extraordinary amount of work and rehab, and then going back and training, and the fact that he still wants to travel and play and train, and he's, 67 now. I think work ethic, people take it for granted how much focus, determination, and work ethic it really takes to be a champion.
I agree, and the other thing that it covered, one of the things in it was right at the front of the book when you talk to Jan Stevenson, and I think that can correlate to some of the players now on the LPGA Jan was a great player, but they also tried to make her a star, for the benefit of the LPGA, and that happens in professional sports, and she wasn't really ready for that. She was a kid, more or less, for
right,
doing that, and
yeah.
and
She was a rookie, blonde hair, blue-eyed, came from Australia to a new country, and the LPGA back then, under Commissioner Ray Volpe, asked her if she would kind of be the face of the LPGA, and she didn't know what she was getting into.
right.
And I think she didn't think that she would get into the Hall of Fame based on, she had got a lot of negative feedback from people and her colleagues, her fellow competitors. Either they were jealous or didn't think that she should be using sex appeal to show off the LPGA. Certainly, you couldn't get away with that in these times, right? It would not be politically correct, so to speak. But
Right.
I'm glad to say that she finally got into the Hall of Fame. And I think a lot of women and men appreciate, what she did back in the 70s to keep the LPGA going. Because, when you look at the LPGA in the 70s, and she was going on Johnny Carson and doing all kinds of appearances and featured on the Mag cover of Sports Illustrated, and hobnobbing with sponsors at different corporate and pro-am events. And she said, hey, if I would have focused more on training and competition, I probably would have won even more titles. So I think she did sacrifice a lot for the good of, the organization.
Yeah, I think she did too. We're going to take another break. We're going to be back with Ann Liguori. Excuse me. We're going to talk more about her new book, Life on the Green: Lesson and Wisdom from the Legends of Golf, when we come back. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. Today we're talking with Ann Liguori. Ann's resume is, I ran out of paper in my printer when I was looking up Ann's resume here. So
You're very kind.
I'll just tell you, it's superlative out there. We would like to thank, of course, Painted Hills Natural Beef and the Oregon Crab Commission, and our new sponsor, Squares Golf Shoes here, Bob Winkowitz and his crew there. I don't know if you can see my squares hat on when you watch this video, but it's pretty cool. Anyway, we're talking with Ann Liguori, and she's got a new book. I want to talk a little bit more about that. Life on the Green, Lessons and Wisdom from the Legends of Golf. I Yeah, hold it up all you want. I think that's great.
That's it, folks. You can go right on Amazon.com and you'll have it in a day or two.
Yeah. I might have to get a hard copy and send it to you and have you sign it and send
Oh,
it
I'd
back to
love
me.
that. I
Yeah.
definitely would do that.
Okay, we'll talk about that off the air, but I think that's very good. Ann's had her own shows in one format or another since '86. Um, that gives you this vast ocean of people to draw from, and all the different people you've interviewed on your various shows. How did you pick the people to be in your book?
Well, that's a good question, because as you mentioned, I interviewed so many different personalities in sports, Hollywood, politics, music, but Calendly Press, the publishers, wanted a golf book. It was around 2020. Golf was pretty much exploding as people in many states could play golf. And that was about all you could do, right, during the
Right.
pandemic. So they wanted a golf book and asked me if I would write one. And I said, sure, I can do that. I've been covering golf for 30 years. I've covered 26 Masters and dozens of US Opens and PJ Championships, Ryder Cups, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just basically came up with the idea. Let me interview 12 legends. I want them to be great role models. I want them to be well spoken. I want them to be of age where they had a lot of great experiences and wisdom that they would share. I wanted them to be able to tell their success stories, and I wanted them to be willing to do that with joy. I didn't want to have to, get doors slammed in my face with agents saying, no, you can't talk to them, or you have to pay them, or, every one of the legends in this book were so kind and generous with their time. And I spent hours interviewing many of them. I interviewed all of them, whether in person or via Zoom. And I'm talking about Amy Alcott, Ben Crenshaw, Padre Carrington, Bernard Longer, Nancy Lopez, Jack Nicklaus, Donnie Pepper, Gary Player, Renee Powell, Annika Sorenstam, Jan Stevenson, and Tom Watson. So I tried to pick 6 men and 6 women who are just stellar role models and who I knew had lots to share and who were really great people. And I'm so proud that I accomplished that. And I have to say, Jeff, many of them, if not all of them, thanked me for including them as the 12. When I went to the Masters this past year, I saw Ben Crenshaw, I saw Renee Powell, I saw Nancy Lopez, Annika, Tom Watson, and they all thanked me for including them in the book. Now, how crazy is that? Because I'm just so grateful that they all agreed to give me their time and share their stories.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big deal. I was I'll maybe I should tell you this off the air, but when Dottie was on the show one time, I said, well, just last week, I said, this is talking to her. I said, yeah, I had Bob Costas on the show and it was a lot of fun. And she said, you're the only person that I know that put Bob Costas, or not Bob Costas. God, he used to do the thing on CBS, the swing coach.
Oh, the swing coach, not
What am I thinking of?
I just interviewed, not oh God, now I just had him on the show. The swing. Well, gosh, there's some. They have a show together, don't they?
Yeah, him and McCord.
Yeah, Gary McCord, Peter.
Yeah,
Peter Costas.
yeah.
Yeah.
She said, you're the only person that ever put Peter Costas and the word fun in the same sentence. And it cracked me up so much I couldn't do the interview for a couple minutes. We were laughing so hard. So that's pardon my brain fade there.
He's a serious guy, but along with his cohort, they have a good time. They do
Sure.
They do a fun podcast.
Oh yeah. I don't think McCord is in that
serious.
No, he's not a very serious guy overall, but he has fun in life. So anyway, like that. I think it's great Not just because they're on the show, but I think it's great that you did a book like this, because when you watch golf broadcasts, or you listen to them, or you listen to a show like this, you always these are icons and people look up to them. I mean, there's only a couple of people above them, and that would be like Hogan, and that is at the top, and of course Tiger's in his own stratosphere, but you know, and but we always kind of I don't want to say idolize them, put them on a pedestal because of their accomplishments. But a lot of the things they talk about in the book, when you talk about hard work and preparation, but they also talk about being human. And sometimes we don't think of them as human, especially when they were on the golf course, because they were, just super above everybody else. And how do you how do you as an interviewer relate to them as a human? That's a weird question, but you know where I'm coming from on that. Is that you're sitting across from Jack Nicklaus, and he's got the record. There's arguments about who's the greatest, him and Tiger and this and that, but how do you relate to him as a human? And most people don't ever see that side of him.
Wow. I've just covered golf for so long, and I've interviewed Jack before. I interviewed most of these people before for different shows and in different capacities. And they are human. They're lovely, gracious people. Look, for my Golf Channel show, I booked my own guests, Conversations with Ann Liguori, and I had Celine Dion on the show. I had Samuel L. Jackson on the show. I had Joe Pesci, Kevin Costner, Sylvester Stallone, Matthew McConaughey. If I can handle those superstars, I've interviewed so many different personalities that I just come to each interview very prepared and try to make it a conversation, because they are human, just like
Yeah.
you and me. So I don't think I'm in awe of, certainly I'm in awe of their accomplishments, and completely respect and blown away by what they've done on the golf course, because I know how hard that golf game is. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
an impossible game. It's the hardest game there is. And I've covered such a variety of sports. I can honestly say golf is the hardest sport I've ever played. And it's so hard for these guys to do what they're doing. What Scotty Scheffler's doing right now, what Tiger did is just phenomenal. What Annika accomplished, what Nelly Korda did, winning what, 6 of 7. So it's just, I'm so respectful of their accomplishments on the golf course, but they're all human like you and me. And I think that shows in the chapters about each one of them. They really open up. And
Yeah.
I just think having a conversation with them, like you and I are having, really, and I try to make each person very comfortable so that they share more. I just had Renee Powell on my Talking Golf show on WFAN, and she was talking about the interview I did with her for the book. And she said, Ann, I went back and read that chapter and can't believe everything I told you. Because she wants to write a book. And I said, listen, you'll have enough material for your own book. But I just think, being a good interviewer and being a good listener and letting them talk, and then following up with, genuine interest. I genuinely am interested in everybody I talk with. And I think that shows, because they share stories that golfers who know everything practically haven't
Yeah.
heard before. So I'm just so honored and delighted that they felt so comfortable to be able to tell so many stories and share so much wisdom that we can all benefit from.
I think you touched on it when you said be a good listener. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that I've learned over the years, and this isn't about me, but I've learned over the years that you make people comfortable and listen to what they say, and then as an interviewer, you can pick up on little bits of humanity in there, and you can let the road take you that way if you want. And a lot of times they just really open up when you do that. It's a lot of fun.
You're absolutely right. And people ask me, what is the key to a good interview? And being a good listener is the most important fact, because you can't interrupt when somebody is talking. A lot of times, if you let that person talk and then don't interrupt at all and take a pause, and then they continue on, it's that second part when they're kind of rethinking how they're going to express themselves. It's normally that next part that is very revealing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned in all my interviews through the years that being a good listener and letting them talk is so crucial to getting them to share things about themselves that you've never heard before.
Absolutely. We're going to take another break, and I'm going to be back with Ann Liguori here. I want to talk about her working foundation or golf tournaments, that type of thing. So when we come back, and she'll hold up the book again, I promise, as soon as we come back.
There you go.
Stay with us. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT, along with a media legend Ann Liguori today, and her new book. Okay, pick it up. Life on the Green: Lessons and Wisdom from Golf Legend, or Legends of Golf. It's a great read. I can tell you that. I think I read all but like 15 pages. So forgive me if I didn't get the last 15 in. But
You have to read the Bernard Longer chapter. Did you read that one?
part of it.
Oh
Part
my
of it.
gosh. He revealed so much that many of us did not know. Just his very existence is a miracle. And he goes into his childhood and just how tough it was, what he had to overcome to even play golf. He came from a very poor family, and his history is just fascinating. And I do want to say thank you very much to Jim Nance, who wrote the foreword. Jim Nance is just, talk about gracious and generous and all the above. For him to have written the advance for this book and be on the front cover is just incredible. So thank you, Jim. You're the best.
Oh, there you go. I know Jim listens to the show every week, so
He should.
he should. Anyway, you've got a foundation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, the Ann Liguori Foundation.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, years ago, when I first moved to New York, actually, I graduated from the University of South Florida, and my dad passed of cancer when I was still in college, a junior in college. And then a year and a half later, I lost my 21-year-old brother to leukemia. So I came to New York right out of college to start my career, having just undergone these two tragedies in what, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So, you kind of sink yourself into work. Being in Manhattan was great therapy because I was busy all the time, just trying to earn a living and pay the rent, basically. And a couple years into being in New York, the American Cancer Society asked me if I wanted to host a golf event at West Hampton Country Club for the American Cancer Society. And I said, absolutely. So basically, that was a celebrity tournament. I called on all my sports celebrity friends, and there were fivesomes, and each foursome had a sports celebrity or a musical celebrity. And we raised a lot of money for the American Cancer Society. And 10 years into that, a friend of mine who was in the not-for-profit space suggested I put my own foundation together so I could help a variety of different not-for-profits. And I agreed to do that. So the Ann Liguori Foundation was born. And basically, our mission is to raise money and awareness for cancer research and cancer care. So we have a charity event every year in the Hamptons, and we go to the most prestigious golf courses there are out here in the East End. So, we were at Friar's Head this past year and last year. We've been to Maidstone a number of times, Atlantic, the Bridge, Sabonic, West Hampton Country Club. So I'm just very proud of our efforts. This year was our 26th Ann Liguori Foundation Charity Golf Classic. And, we help a lot of different organizations. So it's a cause that means a lot to me. And, indirectly or directly, cancer has touched all of us. So I feel that we can't do enough, to raise money and awareness for cancer research and to help others who are suffering from this just dreadful disease.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I try to help on a number of tournaments every year. I reach out and do what I call the full Jeffy on people that have been on the show, whether they're an author or a manufacturer or whatever. And I usually get them to support the tournaments that I work with. Like nothing to the degree that you're doing, obviously, but it all helps. It all helps, and I think I think we have to do it if we're in a position where we can. I think we should. So that's my
Well,
take.
the golf industry, Jeff, is so charitable. I mean, I reach out to all these golf club manufacturers that donate clubs for prizes or balls for the golfers, or anytime I ask for anything in the golf industry, they just send things. And they're just so generous and they're so supportive. And I think we see that every week, not only on the PGA Tour, but the LPGA Tour with the Pro-Ams and with all the work that these organizations do for charity week in and week out. It's just a great sport to be involved with. The people are just incredible.
Yes, they are. Okay. Where can people find you? Ann is going to stick around for after hours. I didn't tell her about that part of the show because, sometimes people scamper away when I do, but she can handle it. But where can people find your book? And also, where can people find out more about your foundation and stuff if they would like to perhaps support it or work with you on something?
Sure. So, they can find me on social media, Ann Liguori on Facebook. I have a fan page and a personal page, Twitter at Ann Liguori, LinkedIn. My Instagram is the Ann Liguori. You just have to spell my name right, ANNLIGUORI. I have a website, annliguori.com, and there's many different ways you can get a hold of me. And of course, you can order the book, Life on the Green, Lessons and Wisdom from Legends of Golf on Amazon. And please order and write a review too. I love reading all the great reviews we've been getting.
I will do that, and I will I'll be shamelessly self-promoting and say you can listen to the interview with Ann on my show. How's that?
I love it.
Okay. We're going to get out of here. We thank you all for listening. I thank Ann for being with us this week. Go out and grab her book. It's a very good read, and she is going to stick around for after hours. So for everybody here, we want to thank you for listening. And remember what we always say at the end of the show, go out, play some golf, have some fun, but most of all, be kind. Take care, everybody. Hey, everybody. Welcome to After Hours. I'm JT. Today we've got Ann Liguori with us. Ann's got a new book out, Life on the Green, Lessons and Wisdom from the Legends of Golf. And if you haven't listened to the regular show yet, I recommend that you do it. It was a great interview. But as usual, we make people suffer here. There's her book. There's her book again, Life on the Green. And these are questions that sometimes are a little irrelevant, nothing too personal. And we go from that. So are you ready, Ann? You ready for this?
I can't wait.
Okay. We'll start with something simple. If you could dine with a historical figure, who would it be and what would be on the menu? And they don't have to be upright and breathing anymore. It can be anybody.
Babe Zaharias. I'd love to get to know her. She seemed like such a character. Probably Babe Zaharias and Babe Ruth. How about the two babes? And anything could be on the menu because I'd be so engaged in conversation, it wouldn't matter what I was eating.
I was going to say that might be a hell of a bar bill. I just
That's okay too.
If we made Ann supreme leader of golf for one day, what would Ann decree as supreme leader of golf?
I would make the golf courses reachable in two for women amateurs. I think a lot of golf courses aren't routed for women. I have a friend who is who does this, and she says the same thing. She's a very good golfer, and no matter how good of an amateur female you are, a player, there are a lot of holes where you just still can't get on the green in two. So
right.
I would kind of redo and rethink, the course architecture, course design, and where you put the tees for women golfers.
Well, this kind of ties in with that if you've got my type of brain, which most people don't. Do you think professional golf is getting further removed from the everyday golfer?
Well, that's a loaded question. I could spend an hour talking about this on Talking Golf with Ann Liguori on The Fan. Well, the professional golfers are so good. From an ability level, the depth of talent is unbelievable. From a viewing standpoint, it is often hard to find coverage of what you're looking to, and it moves around a lot now because of the streaming services and and you're jumping around. And I don't think the LPGA gets the TV coverage that they deserve still.
Right. Right.
On prime time, on network TV. So yeah, in a lot of different ways, it is getting more removed. I mean, it's become so popular, more and more popular as a sport, I think. But then again, with all the Live versus PGA Tour controversy and all the talk about money, 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 money with both entities, I think that's turned off a lot of fans. And so ratings are down. So as I said, it's a loaded question, and it depends what segment of golf you're talking about.
Yeah, I would agree with you that I think a lot of people have, much like they have the national news, no politics here, but it's been so divisive and stuff that they just turned it off. They don't want to
Right.
hear. They don't want to
I
hear
don't,
about it right now.
I do not watch the news hardly at all. You're absolutely right. And again, getting back to my book, Life on the Green, the reason I kept it so positive and uplifting, Jeff, is because our society is so divisive. I didn't want anything negative. I didn't want anything political in the book. I wanted it to be a feel good, very uplifting, positive. I wanted all great messages so people could really, embrace positivity and wisdom and use it to better their lives, basically.
I
None of
think
it is negative.
I think you did a phenomenal job with that. I
Thank
really
you.
do. I read a lot of books. I read like 3 to 5 books a month. A lot of them
Wow.
have to do with the shows, but I've always been a really voracious reader since I was a child. And I tend to like to read the either things that make me laugh or things that make me think in a good way, you know?
Right.
And you did that both in your book. Okay, if you could play a round of golf with one of your golfing heroes, who would it be? Perhaps somebody you've played with a lot of people, a lot of notable people. Who would you want to play with?
Oh, yeah. I played with Jan Stevenson a couple months ago. That was a lot of fun. With one of my heroes. It wouldn't be anybody famous. It would be with my parents. My parents were my heroes. My mom and dad were not golfers. I wish they were still around. It would be just such a joy and such a treasure if they had played and we could spend a ton of time on the golf course just having fun and laughing. So that's what it would be. It would be spending more time with my mom and dad, and they certainly drove me to enough tennis lessons and softball games through the years when I was a kid. But I wish they were still around so I could enjoy golf with both of them.
Okay, yeah. So, uh, it might be your folks. I have no idea, but you'll tell us here. Who was the biggest influence on you personally, do you think?
Well, certainly my parents were great role models, and I come from a very solid foundation, which I think is key. Uh, to succeed or if not, it gives you obstacles to overcome, which so many champions have done as well. So, but honestly, the people who influenced me, there was a woman named Ruth Lyons, and she was a talk show host, a pioneer talk show host in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was 3 years old in I must have been in a high chair. My mother watched her show every day. It was noontime. And so I was eating. My mother was, watching her show. And this woman was a true pioneer. She had a variety show in Cincinnati. She played the piano. She sang. She interviewed all the most fascinating people that came into Cincinnati. She had them in her studio. And boy, it's amazing the impact somebody had on me when I was 3. But she was my first role model. And from my earliest days, that's all I wanted to do is do what I'm doing now, interview people and host shows. And Ruth Lyons, they wrote a book about her. What a legend. And she did it back in the 60s. So,
Yeah, yeah,
wow.
absolutely. Okay, here's a little show and tell, Annie. Um, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made on the air? Now, you only had a 7-second delay when you're live, so
Yeah.
we've all made them.
I just can't remember. I can tell you that I corrected Howard Cosell when he made a mistake with a commentary, and I thought I was going to lose my job. Do you know who I am, young lady? This is Howard Cosell. I don't make mistakes. I had to call him at home, much to the chagrin of my engineer, who said nobody calls Howard at home. It was my first week on the job at ABC Radio and Sports Network. But I'm just trying to think about a mistake. I'm sure through the years I might have said something wrong in a report covering the US Open or covering, a golf event or hosting 5 hours of live. But nothing glaringly comes to mind, which I think is a good thing. But I do remember how I felt when I called Howard Cosell at home and told him that he had made a mistake. He said this and he meant to say that. Could he redo that one line so I could edit that in? And there was a long pause. And then this voice, this legendary voice just comes out. And I'm like, wow, what am I going to say to that? And I said, well, Mr. Cosell, normally you're perfect. But in this case, you said this and you meant to say that. Why don't you just redo that one line and you'll be flawless as usual? He never forgot my name after that, for sure.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. Um, I know I've thought the mic was off when I used to do live radio. I thought the mic was off very early in my career. I was in college and the mic was not off. So I'll just
That's
leave it
not
at,
good.
I'll just leave it at that. What's the dumbest thing you think you've ever seen while covering a tournament? Not you being dumb, but something that you just shook your head at.
Well, I don't know about dumbest things, but I've seen a lot of players melting down, bad sportsmanship. I won't pinpoint any one athlete, but at the US Open tennis, I've seen some crazy meltdowns and misbehavior and yelling at lines judges and umpires. And, you tend to lose a lot of respect for those champions who do that. So that's what I recall mostly because, you hold most of these champions in such high esteem and you feel like they should behave comparable to their performances, their winning performances. But when you see somebody just be a bad sport and
Yeah.
act so asinine, it really is disappointing. So I've seen many of those, not just meltdowns, but just lashing out and bad sportsmanship for sure.
Um, if we put your skills to music, Ann, what would the music be?
What would the music be?
Think of it as a soundtrack to your life.
Yeah. That's a great question. Hans Zimmer is just such an incredible genius. I don't want to, compare my genius to his genius, but if I were to aspire to be, any composer, any musician, I just think what he's done, the theme song for, oh gosh, no, I can't think of it. Gladiator
Yeah.
is just brilliant. And if you listen to that, it's so moving and it is just so powerful. And boy, if I'm going to compare myself to anybody, that soundtrack would be an honor to live up to,
Sure.
truly, because
Abs-
he's a genius in all the work that he's done. And that theme song to the Gladiator film is just incredibly genius.
oh, absolutely. Um, what's one thing you miss about your 20s? If in fact you miss anything at all about your 20s.
Say that again. You cut out there for a second.
Oh, sorry. What's one thing you miss about your 20s?
Well, I have one thing I miss about my 20s. I will say I wish I would have learned golf when I was young. I didn't learn golf until I was in my 20s. I played every other sport.
Yeah.
I was very athletic when I was a kid. But what do I miss about my 20s? I came to New York City right out of college and I caught the tail end of Studio 54 days. And that was a blast. I got into Studio 54 and oh my God, what a rude awakening for a small town kid from Ohio, right? That was
Yeah.
awesome. I'm so glad that I can talk about that history because New York City was great back in the day. I loved living there. I lived in the city in Manhattan for 25 years. But yeah, I loved my 20s because I was covering every team in New York, going to the 21 Club for press conferences, the Plaza, going to parties, going to discos, just having a blast. So my 20s and 30s were a
That
riot.
that sounds like a a very good time.
It was a great time.
If you were an animal, what animal would you be, Ann?
I would be a golden retriever, like my golden, who is not here right now. I'm surprised he's not jumping on me right now. My husband Scott must be keeping him intact. Gussie, where are you? Golden retrievers, they're so lovable and smart.
Yeah, they are.
He's beautiful. They love to swim, they love to run, they're very athletic. I've had 3 Goldens in my life, and they're the best dogs on the planet. So they say owners look like their dogs.
Well,
And that's true. I mean, how many times do you see an owner look just like their dog, right?
well, I
I'll
have a
never forget being in Central Park, and my dad and I were talking about this years ago, and there we saw this I don't know if it was a man or woman, but they had one of the a boxer. And those faces on the boxer, and the owner looked just like the face of the dog. It was hysterical.
um tell us if you remember any of this stuff. A lot of, I grew up about the same time you did, and some of these things I don't remember. The best and worst concerts you ever attended.
Huh. I remember going to a Led Zeppelin concert at Richfield Coliseum when I was in high school. And that was wild because, I was a straight laced kid. And I was up in a loge, and all the smoke was like kind of coming up toward us. And I think I got high just smoking everybody else's smoke.
All right, all right.
So I don't know if that's, a worst concert. And I see them? I saw Elton John at Wembley Stadium, which was awesome. There's just been so many. I'll tell you, I do want to see Coldplay. That would be a concert I'd love to go see. Train, I love. I don't know. I don't think I've ever been to a bad concert. I see good in everything.
I've noticed
Yeah.
that about you. Okay, only a couple more here, Ann. As you progress through your career, did you have a favorite sports writer? Now, when I grew up, sports writers were those curmudgeonly guys in the corner of the newspaper office that had a cigar and whatever. They're kind of stereotyping them. But did you have
Yes,
a favorite sports writer?
sure. I had a lot of them, and they used to guest on my shows all the time. George Vesey from New York Times Sports, Dave Anderson, award-winning Dave Anderson. I think he won a Pulitzer Prize. Peter Alfano. I mean, the New York Times sports section was so great. It's I'm so sad that Harvey Irriton, he's a great writer. I just admired so many of them. They were great. Philip Bondi, Lupica, I saw just at the writers versus artists softball game, the legendary game that's been going on in East Hampton for 75 years now. Just a lot of different sports personalities, sports journalists that I admired. Ian O'Connor, he just came out with a book on the Jets quarterback. There's so many of them, and they all have guested on my shows. I just respect them so much, and they're so knowledgeable.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, they're a walking encyclopedia between their ears. They're actually like that. Um, Here's kind of an abstract question, but you do a lot with your foundation and stuff. Do you think golf can help kids that have trouble with math and or social skills?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Golf is a great vehicle for everyone, no matter what skills you have. I just think it gets you out to a beautiful, space. If you can take lessons and learn how to hit the ball technically, properly, even if you don't, I brought a lot of my tennis swing to my golf game, and right now, if all the years later, it's just hard to have. I certainly don't have a textbook golf swing, but yeah, I mean, I do a lot of work with adaptive golfers.
Mm-hmm.
I interview a lot of adaptive golfers. Max Togasella, who just repeated his title in the seeded division of the U.S. Adaptive Open. He's been on my show several times. Anthony Netto, who runs a great foundation, the Stand Up and Play Foundation. They all use golf and introduce golf to veterans and to people with disabilities, whether it's physical or mental, and it gets them off the sofa. It gives them new life. A lot of people will swear that golf has saved their lives. So definitely golf is a great outlet for everybody.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, you got two questions. One is, this is one that makes people scratch their head once in a while. What would be your last meal if Ann Liguori was on death row?
Oh my God, I'm gonna go have some lobster tonight. But my husband Scott Valerie is a great chef. And every night he comes up with the most incredible meals. He loves to cook. So I would say anything that Scott would cook for me, hopefully it wouldn't be my last meal, but anything he would make would be great. He's really good at Italian dishes. But I probably would say it'd be, an Italian pasta, whether it's linguine with, clams and shrimp, or, another pasta with mozzarella, basil, and maybe a penne pasta with red sauce. I would say it would be a pasta dish.
So, Ann, what time is dinner? That's what I want to know.
Well, tonight we're going out. A friend of mine has a birthday we're celebrating, and we're going to go to a place called Dockers. It's right out here in the Hamptons, and it's on the water. So it's kind of a seafood place. So I always get lobster at this place. But normally dinner is about 6:30, and you're welcome anytime. Chef Scott will really impress you.
Well, there you
I've
go.
been very blessed. I have my own chef in the house.
We can talk cooking because I'm known as the cowboy cook on TV out here.
I love it.
Here's the last one. This is your opportunity here. What would Ann Liguori's message to the world be?
My message to the world would be love one another, be kind. We only live once, and I think, good needs to prevail over evil. So have goodness in your heart and focus on goodness and being good and being kind and love one another. I think that's an important message always, but certainly, as you and I mentioned, in these crazy divisive times, these times of turmoil, I just think we need to put our differences aside, work together, and really love one another.
I think that's a great message. Ann's new book, Life on the Green, Lessons and Wisdom from Legends of Golf. There, she's got it up again. She knows what she's doing there. Find it on Amazon, and you can find out on her websites and all the social media stuff there, and track her down and find out about her foundation.
Gussie,
and
come here, Gus, cookies. I wanted to get my dog here, but
okay.
Come here, Gus. Look what I got. Come on. He's looking at me like, come on, cookies. Oh man. Normally he'd be jumping on top of me. Oh, here he comes. Here he comes.
All right.
I just want you to say hi to Gus. Come on, up, 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 up.
Hey, buddy.
There he is.
Hi, Gus. Everybody say hi to Gus there.
Oh,
what a beautiful
look, he's
dog.
Augusta. Augusta? Yeah.
Augusta. I like that.
Look, he's a good boy.
Does he eat pimento and cheese?
Oh man, he'd love that. Definitely.
He's big.
He's a big boy. It's 80 pounds.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah.
When he goes through the doorway, you give him a leadway, type thing. Anyway. And thank you so much. I'm going to shut all this off, but thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I really do appreciate it so much.
Jeff, thanks so much. I really appreciate being on. It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. We'll be back next week. I have no idea who's on the show next week, but call me next week if you want to find out, and then I'll tell you, okay? Till then, go out, play some golf, be kind, have fun, and take care, everybody.